plants, fuel cells, electric vehicles, batteries. All of these now become assets. And so rather than customers saying, hey, I have to put up in a backup generator, and it's an investment because I have to worry about it when the grid's out, and what am I going to use? So I need some backup systems, or I need a UPS system in order to preserve my data. Suddenly, rather than insurance policies, these become assets that can be actively managed. And what's most important is as folks are interested in alternative fuels, there's a market now that sits at customer locations to put those fuels in and use them as an advantage, not just, again, as backup or insurance policies, but true assets that can be managed. So from our standpoint, what we're looking at is in the end, is that by using this from a consumer perspective, customers are saving up to somewhere between 20 to 30% off of their energy costs. And that's simply by using what we call dual-purposing assets, making them used not just for consumption, but for efficient consumption and then actually for grid support. So that's sort of the whole of my story. Let me see. I can miss a couple. So this is sort of an example of what we did as a sort of megawatt, one value of 1 megawatt for a customer that can participate in the various markets. And for folks who spend, $100 million to $200 million a year to sometimes $1 billion a year on energy, being able to save 20 to 30% off their bill becomes real dollars and real value back to them. The other piece is that by doing it this way and turning it not only to a form of savings but also revenues, we're able to answer DOE's concern, which is we're no longer relying on tax credits or subsidies. These become workable assets because from a customer perspective, they get both the savings and the revenues. They're able to pencil in and get things done in a period where they couldn't do before. So as I mentioned before, as a great example, the SEPTA, they always wanted to put in a battery to help them support the trains. They could never make it work because it was always like a 10-year payback, and the batteries only last 7 to 10 years. What we're able to do is by adding the revenue dimension is get that battery payback down to 4 to 5 years when suddenly it becomes a real profitable use of capital for them. And that's what's really critical about creating markets. It's an economic incentive. That's a real economic incentive, not a subsidy or a tax credit. This is the other piece of all of this is really then what's it do for prices overall. So as I mentioned, it's demand that sets prices in the market. It's not supply. So this would be a typical demand curve. As demand goes up in the markets, what happens is that the generators that are the most expensive generators to run, usually oil-based, used to be gas-based, but mostly oil-based now, are the ones that get run at peak. They're the ones that set the price. The cheapest generators, coal and nuclear, set what we call base load. So this would be a demand curve and would show you that as demand goes up, prices go up, and everybody pays that clearing price. So at that hour of 1:30, I don't have my glasses on, everyone's paying $600 an hour because that's the price of electricity during that period of time. When we're doing what we're talking about, which is managing demand, what that does is it manages that demand curve. So not only do you get paid the clearing price, but the actual overall price of electricity that you're buying from goes down. So what this does is not only drives down actually the price for the individual participant, but actually everybody in the region now gets the benefit of the fact that we're not running our most expensive power plants and we're creating a more efficient grid. So let me just go through this to the end. Because it's basically, from our perspective then, what we're looking to offer customers is really putting you in the position that you would be at any generator is. So what we do is, as our service with the software, is we provide you information as to what the prices are going to be on the grid over not only the next hour, but the next day, and we go up to 10 days. And we put it in terms of where you are locally. And to do that, we have forecasting techniques that take into case both prices, weather, things like that will drive prices in the market. Then the next thing we do is we optimize then your usage against those prices. So just like a generator decides what it wants to bid like, what we do is we work with our customers to see how best to use their energy assets. so that they're both meeting their needs, but also then simultaneously providing them a revenue source. And then the third piece we do then is help manage those assets by sending the signal so that you actually are in a position to be able to say, look, I'm only going to buy when it's advantageous to me. I'm not going to do it in a way that's disruptive to the folks inside my buildings, and I'm going to fully monetize my assets so they're full value and get an increased return. I think that, as the world moves on, and I will sort of end on this note, we're seeing on a worldwide basis that the fact is that we're not going to be able to keep up with demand. Demand of electricity is going to go up 20 to 30% continuously as the markets change and we see more and more folks moving into the middle class. What that means is that we're going to continue to see increased demand for electricity, which is not a bad thing because actually it leads to more productivity. What happens, though, is that as we use technology to move from really this traditional forms of generating electricity to these distributed networks, we're creating what we call in a smart grid is the ability to move intelligence of the network to the edge of the system. And that means that other assets that today would be underutilized become fully utilized as part of that system. And for those of us who are interested in things like sustainability and alternative fuels, what this does is it creates a market. And the way I always talk about it is that pretty much since the grid, again, is a single machine, that everything has to remain in balance, meaning generation and load have to equal out. For the last 130 years, the electricity industry has focused on simply the supply side, making that more efficient. Now we have communication technologies and other technologies that allow us to move towards more distributed resources. So we could start focusing on the load side of the equation, making usage more efficient and actually using these resources. What the federal government has handed us as a gift and said what they're going to do is make sure the markets treats all these resources equally. And what really we're trying to do as our company is use our specialty in understanding the markets and our decision tools is to give really our customers a gateway into those markets so that not only can they make sure that they're managing their energy effectively, but actually taking that back and monetizing it. So really providing them that revenue source that allows them to fund the investments that allows us to create greater sustainability. And we think, as the emerging world is changing, what we're seeing in India, in Japan after Fukushima, in China, is actually a move towards more of this direction of moving away from central station to distributed networks, very much like we saw in communications when we went away from systems with big central switches to iPhones and much more user control. So that's sort of, to me, the excitement of it. I think you guys are at the cusp of a lot of changes that are going to go around in the industry, and I think it's all good and exciting times for all of us. And I'd be happy to talk to any of you afterwards if you have any questions, or now. Thank you.